How y'all doing? Welcome you guys to Revolutionary Ministries. And as always, we are a movement of God, birthed out of a necessity to please the Father. We are that experience and that encounter outside of traditions, outside religion, outside of his denominational views, outside of your feelings, outside of your emotions, outside of eisegesis, outside of exegesis, outside of theology, outside of church politics, outside of all that. Here we hear what it is that the Most High God is saying to us, through us, as us. As you guys are coming in, don't forget to tag, share, and invite. Bring somebody in on this experience, on this encounter. Because faith comes by hearing, and hearing comes by God's word. Right? So just come on in. That's all I can say. We'll get into what God want to say in a minute, right? Come on in. I know there's somebody you probably want to invite in on this conversation. I'm going to invite some people as well. Blessings to your family. Grado, prophetess, God bless you all. Let me share this on the timeline. Come on in. How y'all doing? Blessings, family. Come on in. Well, if you're watching this live, or maybe if you'll watch this live later, that's on you. I'm just prompted by the Spirit of God to come on. And that's what I will do. Oh, wait. Y'all see that background? I'm going to go get one more device. Come on in. Blessings, family. Come on in. Y'all tag, share, and invite. So, man, this last, I can't really say this last few days, last week, last month, but what I can say is that ever since that eclipse, you guys, it's just been real strange if you're paying attention, right? Maybe you're paying attention, maybe you aren't paying attention. I just want you to wake up, just in case you've allowed some religious sex, some religious jargon, some information to cause you to fall asleep. Because, again, God could give you the seeds to sow, right? And you could be, walking by the Spirit, right? You could. And all of a sudden, you find out that there is some tares, among your wheat. And I take that from the story, that is contained within the Bible, within the scriptures themselves, right? The disciples of Christ, Yahshua was telling a story, right? And within the story, he was telling them that, hey, I thought we sowed good seeds. What happened? What happened? I thought we sowed good seeds. I thought we sowed good seeds, right? And he said, and the disciples like, man, but when we went out there, we saw that there was tares growing up amongst the wheat that we sowed, right? The things that we sowed, we found out, man, that there was some tares in. And of course, obviously, they said to him, hey, we don't even remember. We don't even remember. Now, think how dangerous that is when they say, we don't even remember sowing these tares. But what they said is that, hey, what we can do is that we can go out there and uproot them. What we can do is go out there and uproot them. And Yahshua said, he said, listen. He said, now, an enemy has done this, right? And unfortunately, he done it while y'all was asleep. But I want you to think about that for a moment. Now, these were people who was walking with God, right? Like right there. Like right there, right? And he said that, while y'all was asleep, The enemy came and done this, you know. And so they were like, okay, well, all right, so if the enemy came and done this, what we're going to do is that we're going to go out here and we're going to uproot it ourselves. I want you to think about that for a moment, y'all. They said that they were going to go out there and uproot it for themselves, right? And Yahshua said, or Jesus said, remember what he said. Yahshua said, no, because the problem with you trying to uproot what the enemy has done while you were asleep, you're going to mess around and uproot something that was necessary. We're going to break that down. Come on, y'all tag, share, and invite. Y'all tag, share, and invite, and bring somebody else in, right? So because somebody somewhere may need to, hear this message. They may really need to hear this message. And he was like, wait a minute, you know what? Y'all don't go uproot that thing, right? Because you may, once again, you may uproot something that we may need that is probably necessary, right? And so one of the understandings or one of the realities of that is that some things in your past life or your past experiences, you may think, that, you may want to get rid of, or rather that you may want to uproot. You know what I'm saying? But Yahshua was saying, nah, because there's certain things that you got to go through, right? Certain things that you got to go through. Y'all tag and bring some people in here. So Yahshua said, now watch this. So Yahshua said, now watch what he said. He said, you know what? I'm not gonna let you. I'm not gonna let you uproot it. I'm not gonna let you uproot it, because in any case, you are not equipped to be able to say, what needs to be uprooted, because the wheat and the tares, they look similar, right? And but one of the points, right, or one of the realities that I want to pull out of this is that Jesus said that while you were asleep, an enemy came in and did this. So it lets us know that even though that they were following God, like they were literally following God, but it came a point in their walk with God that even they themselves got into a place to where that they have fallen asleep. They themselves had gotten to a place to where they had fallen asleep, even while walking with God. They had gotten to a place to where, you know what? They have fallen asleep, right? And there are a lot of things, you guys, that we are asleep on, right? Or sleep on. So the context simply is suggesting that there are many things that we don't really know about, right? So when we say blessings to your family, come on in and tell y'all tag sharing about, so that there's many things that we're asleep upon. Sleeping, you guys know that, I like to modernize the text because once again, a lot of us, we don't really, know old English language, and we don't. And so that's why it's so important that we are able to modernize the text, right? Wow, look at these ants, man. They're not playing. So he was like, well, you don't have enough information to be able to determine what needs to be uprooted and what needs to stay. Because a lot of people be like, well, man, if I had a chance, to go back in time, I'll stop this from happening, or I'll make a different choice, and that's what Yahshua was dealing with. He was dealing with the fact that, at the current level or at the current state that they were in, that they didn't really have enough information to be able, even them walking with God, they didn't have enough information to determine what needed to be uprooted and what needed to be staying. Anybody getting that? Because, we ourselves, you know what I'm saying? We look back on certain things, right? And you could look back with little information, and you could look back with a greater information. And when you look back with little information, all you do is complain. All you do is moan, cry, and be like, God, if that wouldn't have happened, that wouldn't have happened, and that wouldn't, if this wouldn't have happened, if that wouldn't have happened. You know what I'm saying? And so Yahshua on the we talk through the eyes and the view of revelation. We don't talk through all the other stuff. And when God begins to reveal something to us, that's the viewpoint that we talk from, right? And so he was dealing with the fact that even his disciples walking with him didn't have enough information, or revelation, whatever word or term context you want to put there, in order to determine what needs to stay and what needs to go, right? What needs to stay and what needs to go. And so, I was just fellowshipping with God because on this level, because I was like, man, God, just moment of transparency, man, if that wouldn't have happened, then I could have probably been serving you more. Or, if I wouldn't have made this move, then I'd probably be further along than I am now. Or if I just would have went to college, or if I didn't have a drug head in my family, or if I didn't go to jail, in our own mind, in our own context, when we look back on things, we tend to, we just tend to, dang, I must be in the wrong spot. We tend to, let me move this out the way. Y'all tag some people. All right, come on, man. Too many distractions right there, so I'm moving. It was too many distractions right there, so I'm just moving out of the way of those distractions, right? To make sure that when we start flowing, I don't get distracted, right? So, most of the time we be like, man, if this didn't happen, or if that didn't happen, you know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times that's what the revelation of the scripture, I just learned that ants hate baby powder. Oh, they hate baby powder. So if I put baby powder on my feet, what you're saying is that they're not gonna crawl on there. They just crawled on there, but none of them didn't bite me. So I don't know. But I don't like the distraction. They was crawling all over my legs, all over my foot. They was full on my feet, but none of them bit me. But But I still need to. I still thought that it'll be best to move around because they was, it was all over my legs. So, so I got some foot powder now. I'll probably put on next time. So, so Yahshua was dealing with the fact that his disciples, even his own disciples, who were close to him, or closer to him than any other people, still didn't have enough discernment, didn't have enough insight, didn't have enough revelation, didn't have enough information to be able to go out there and to determine what needs to be uprooted, what needs to stay, or what needs to go, right? So it's important. One of the things that he was, fellowshipping with me about, because I went into one of these, rants with God. You know what I'm saying? I went into one of these rants with God. Like, come on, God, like, why didn't you stop me from doing that? Why didn't you just, because many times, God overrides things that I want to do, or many times he overrides things that I try to do. And those things that I do, I question God. And I'll be like, God, well, why didn't you, why didn't you override that? Why didn't you, just take over me like you normally do, and just going back and forth, in real, when you real with God and you don't see God, and when you see God in the totality of who he is, what he is and what he is and what he isn't, you have this ability, to be able to just conversate, whether it be by spoken word, audible, or whether it be by your spirit, or whether it be by your, the flesh, or whether it just be in your head. You have this ability when you have a real relationship, with God. You're not trying to learn what to say. Can we say that? When you have a real relationship with God, you're not trying to learn what to say. Can we coin that phrase, right? When you have a real relationship with God, you're not trying to learn what to say. When you don't have a relationship with God, you initially try to learn what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. But I've come along on this journey to realize, or come to the place of realization or revelation that man, like you could just have that conversation, and that conversation could be very well be the conversation that's necessary just to get some things off your chest, because sometimes you may or may not have individuals that are at the faith level that you are at, that you can engage in these types of conversations with, because they'll end up at the end of the day looking at you differently and treating you differently, and seeing your flesh nature. And not many people can see your flesh nature and still hold you, as the Christ nature. But Peter was Peter was one of those people who had that ability to see Jesus and to see Christ. Blessings to your apostles, you're coming in. He had that ability, and it's hard to find somebody who has that ability to see Jesus and to see Christ. And that's why Peter was very, very important to Jesus, because he had the ability to say, you know what, you're a devil, you're drunk, you're this, you're that. But to me, you're God, manifested in the flesh. But to me, and so a lot of us, we don't have people in our lives that are like that, because you have to be at a level of maturity that supersedes all the carnal stuff, all of the thou shalt not, right? Thou shalt not, thou shalt not. And so Peter had a very important relationship, with God, man. And so when you don't have anybody, you develop a relationship with God in a way to where you can release anything. You could talk about anything. I remember one time, a lot of people don't think that, sometimes you can get mad, you know what I'm saying, upset, I guess. Now, I'm not saying you're cursing God out, but I've seen occasions where people have gotten angry. I mean, God has allowed me to be in so many different places and to hear so many different things. It'll mess your head up, man. But I've seen instances, where somebody got, so upset with God, when we were having a conversation, they were like cursing God out. And you know what God told me, man? You know what he really like, and for me, my flesh, when I just heard them talking that way, I was like, oh my God, no, don't do that, don't say that. And God, told me to shut up. God told me to shut up. I'm talking about he told me to shut up. And if you don't shut up, I've even had it where God will mute you. You don't want to get to the place where God mutes you. And when I say mute you, that means you get a sickness, you get sick, or something happen to you, and it'll be natural, but you don't understand that it's spiritual, that God's trying to shut your mouth, trying to shut your throat. Let these people have a real experience. Allow these people to have a real encounter with me, And sometimes we be so high and mighty, that we think and we believe that everybody should encounter God like we encounter God. And, and when you're walking in your flesh, you think that. And you try to make everybody have that same encounter. And on one level, walking in your flesh, it's the thing to do, it's the thing to say, But when you start walking in the Spirit and God starts taking you to different levels, different heights, you begin to see, man. I'm telling you, like watch this. You begin to see that even though she's doing this or even though he's doing that, you see God is with them. And that threw me off. That kind of messed my head up. I'm just talking about just certain, and that kind of messed my head up, y'all. That like literally messed my head up when God took me higher, right? And he began to show me various people in various positions doing various things. And he began to say, look, see, I'm with him. Look, see, I'm with her. Look, see, I'm with them. And even with this experience, even with this encounter, I'm like, man, come on now. You can't be with him. And I'm like, man, come on now. You can't be with her. Look at what they doing. Look at what he's doing. Look at him. And I'm telling God, look at him. And so I learned something that I don't think I could have learned in church. I don't think I could have learned by reading the Bible. And again, there's a lot of things, that that I don't think I read. I learned, you know what I'm saying, from reading the scriptures. And that's why I say what I say all the time, you know what I'm saying, about certain things, because a lot of things you really can't learn reading the scriptures, because, again, the scriptures weren't written to us, but they were written for us, And so he began to show me all of these different people, all the different people that he's really in their lives, and it began to throw me off. And it began to mess me up, like you can't be in his life. You can't be allowing them to go through that. And because I question it myself. You can't not be allowing me to go through this. It's impossible. Because we learn about God through church, we learn about God through religion, and we get this huff, fluff, and puff view of God. And we do. Just got to be very honest. We got to be truthfully honest. And that's the byproduct of people taking things out of the Bible and just deciding that, this is what I want to give to the people. I don't, I want to give this to the people, rather than give people the reality of the experience with God. And the problem is that most of our leadership don't have an experience with God. Most of our leadership don't have an encounter with God. Most of our leadership with these big churches, they don't have an experience with God. So anyway, just fellowshipping with God. I'm just telling you some of the things, with fellowshipping with God, and so it leads me to this a deeper place, with God. When you allow God to be God in your life, right? So when we talk about the God story, God, what God said, what God told me, and I'm free to tell you this. And I don't, you may get it, you may not get it, you may understand it, you may not understand it. But he says, son, you are the byproduct. And when he says son, he's not just talking to me. When he says son, he's not just talking to me. You got to position yourself to be able to hear the conversations that he's having with me, through me. He said, you as sons of God are the byproduct of me deciding to clone myself. Me deciding to actually have an experience, an encounter with myself to see what others see in me. And I said, man. Let me back up and let me say this again. He said, some of you are the byproduct of me wanting to have an experience and an encounter with myself so that I could see what others see within me. Their viewpoint of me, their expression of me. And let me say this one more time. He said, son, let me tell y'all something. When I decided to create you, it is the byproduct of me wanting to see me, wanting me to experience me. And to see how I would operate, to see how I would function, to see how I would flow down here. And not only that, to see what people see about me, with their encounters or their paradigms and what they go through, their feelings and emotions, make them see me differently or make them experience me differently. Yeah, I don't really get it that I know God knows all, but a lot of it he's not experiencing. I don't know if I said that right. I mean, the benevolent being that we call God knows all. But though there are certain things that he wants to know, that he knows, that he wants to experience, that he wants to encounter. Imagine you having the power and the ability to create anything and do anything. And a thought pops up in your head and saying, you know what? I want to experience being a riding jet skis. And so, boom, you produce a whole world all because you want to ride jet skis. I don't know if you get that. I don't know if you truly understand that or understand that, or understand that. But most of us think we're just here by chance or just here by happenstance because of the other beings that exist here on this planet as well. Now, imagine you saying, you know what, I want to experience duck hunting. And you create a whole world so that you can hunt ducks. And that's the primary focus of that creation. Imagine you saying, you know what, I want to take care of animals. And you create a whole world so you could take care of animals. And that's the primary focus of that creation. Now, for us, that would be wild. For us, that would be wild. Like, hey, I created a whole world all because, I wanted to, experience some of the things that are in my head. And so what does that say? What does that really say? What does that mean to us? Does that make what does that what does that mean? What does that say? Well, unfortunately, it says something, but in reality, it don't really say anything because because now we have become so human. We've become so human. The problem with us in this modern age is that we become too human. So this simply means that we cannot, even when we hear it, express ourselves from the God explanation. So even when we do get a God explanation, a God concept, a God idea, it's because we become so human, we don't get it. Because from our human concept, our human expression, when you see 1 + 1 on a piece of paper, because of our human expression, what is the answer to that equation? This is what I mean by the human expression. 1 + 1 equals what? 2 + 2 equals what? 4 + 4 equals what? 16 + 16 equals what? 32 + 32 equals what? 64 + 64 equals what? You know? So this is human intellect. And this is the furthest that our human intellect is, right? And so when we're trying to express God or trying to hear from God, we're trying to hear from God or express God through our own human consciousness or our own human intellect, right? And so when we try to do that, we run into problems. We run into equations that we cannot solve. We run into answers that, that we don't have questions for, and we run into questions that we don't have answers for. We run into answers that we don't have questions for. And we run into questions that we don't have answers for. And so our experience, or rather our encounter with God, is only only founded upon our human concepts and our human ideologies. But when you look at the Bible itself and you start reading scripture teaches us what? For his thoughts are not your thoughts. And neither is his ways your ways. And so as the heavens are higher than the earth, so God's ways are higher than our ways. And so when you start actually encountering God, one of the things that, I like to tell people, or I like to rather express to people, is that he has to dumb you down. And I know, that don't make sense. Why would God have to dumb me down? Why? Because your human experience, or your human intellect, or your human feelings, or your human emotions gets in the way. It gets in the way of what he's doing. It truly gets in the way. It gets in the way of what he's doing. It gets in the way of what he's saying. Your human intellect won't allow you to actually experience God. It won't even allow you to encounter God. It's not supposed to. In fact, your human experience is supposed to keep you safe. Your human experience is not supposed to allow you to see angels, allow you to see demons, allow you to to see the unseen world. It's not supposed to allow you to believe in invisible things. It's not supposed to allow you to believe in aliens. It's not. And most of us, that's what makes our human experience viable, right? Is that it allows us to take in, encounter information, and make the best decisions possible based on the information that is given to us, so to speak, counting the costs. Now, counting the costs has a dual-fold experience, because when you talk about counting the costs, it's not only mean that counting the costs with your human intelligence, with your natural recollection and knowledge and understanding, but it also means that when you start going deeper in God, you better count the costs. You may very well have to lose your perceptions, your ideas, your encounters, and your human experience in order for you to have a viable, real relationship with God. That's why most of your leaders, your real leaders who have real encounters, real experiences with God, they're either under the bridge, poor, broke, drunk, high, loaded, or they're in a mental facility, fighting demons and devils and I mean, going in and out of experiences and encounters, right? Because that's the one thing about God. Is because even with Paul, remember Paul, right? He was like, man, there are a lot of things that I can tell y'all, but, I can't tell y'all. Because we're not at the level of faith or cognition or revelation of recognition that we can really adopt those things, of God. It's just like I say, we were made for a purpose and we were made for a reason, and to say that we have choice. In your human experience, you may believe that you have choice. But then when you come into the place where you start understanding purpose, you recognize that there are a set of rules that you must follow. And if you don't follow those rules, then you can't become or do those things, rather, that the set of rules points in the direction of. Right? You can't. So when we're talking about the God story, you must at the most fundamental level, you must truly understand that we are the byproduct of God experiencing and encountering himself. Of God encountering, God experiencing himself. It is the most fundamental thing that you must learn as a believer, is that we are the byproduct of God experiencing and encountering himself. How I know in my head how I would react, but I want to experience that reaction. And for our human experience, That sounds crazy. That sounds messed up. In fact, on so many levels, it sounds wrong. But I've had the chance to sit with people who's had money. And the regular things that we do, they don't do. These people set up scenarios. This is why it's so deep. These people set up scenarios. They've set up different scenarios. They play different kind of games. You know, unlike what we do. You know, unlike how we experience life. They experience life much more differently than we do. So when we start talking about the God story, we can't look at it from our own paradigms, our own expressions, our own concerns, our own thoughts, our own ideologies. Because we didn't make ourselves. One thing that we must understand is that we didn't make ourselves. We didn't create ourselves. We didn't create ourselves. And a lot of people talk about, now watch this, a lot of people talk about of how, you know, they don't believe in God or they don't believe in a creator. And you know, that kind of makes sense, but then it kind of doesn't make sense at all. You know, because now we have the ability, right, to create suns. Now we have the ability to create a sun. So how can you say the sun evolved if we now have the ability to create a sun? See, so many things are being hidden from us. But as we begin to mature more and more in God and start sitting under the right people, watching the right things, listening to the right things, we'll begin to start awakening the divine nature that is within us. Now we have the ability to create clouds. We have the ability to create many things, people. And so now they should come into the concept of the ideology that, wait a minute, if I have the ability to create these things, then why is there not such a malevolent being that created these things if we can create them now? See what I'm talking about? And not only can we create our own sun, but we can do whatever we want with that sun. So in even in the human experience, when you obtain enough information, you can actually know without a shadow of a doubt that there's a creator, because we can create things. We can create light. We can create darkness. We can create trees. We can create fruit. We can create vegetables. We can create animals. We can create people. We can create cars, jets. We can create so many different things. So why wouldn't people believe that somebody created this thing that we call the sun and the moon, trees, stars, solar system, planets, whatever it is that exists out there? Right? So we said all that to say that, you know, I was just having a conversation with God, you know, because God will allow you to get in certain places, do certain things to where you have to listen to him. You know, you ever been in that place where you have to listen to God, where you have to obey God, where you say, but you know what, God, dog, I thought me doing this and I thought me doing X, Y, and Z, it would work out in my favor. But the reality of it is that it didn't, because when you're predestined, nothing that you do will work out in your favor. When you're chosen, one thing about being chosen, one thing about being called and chosen, nothing that you do will work out in your favor. Nothing. It'll work, but it won't work out in your favor, you know? It'll work, but it won't work out in your favor. So, just fellowshipping and, you know, talking with God. There are many things that are about to transpire, many things that will transpire here, you know. Even the sky, you know, that we look at every day, it may be real, may be the byproduct of man's imagination, because now we can imagine all things. According to the book of Genesis, that which is in man's imagination, you know, it can go. Nothing can stop man's imagination, really. God said that when he looked at the tower, he was like, wow, what these people imagine they can do. And for God, he said, wow, because he experienced himself. When God says, wow, he's experiencing himself. Wow. You know, wow. Because after all, aren't we created, those of us who are chosen, who have been born again, after all, aren't we created in the image of God? And so because we are created in the image of God, shouldn't we have the ability to create things as God created things? We should. Now, it's limited to resources, but we still should be able to. And many of us, we're limited by resources, and that should not limit your understanding of it all. Just because you're limited by resources, you shouldn't, right? You shouldn't. We shouldn't. We shouldn't at all. We shouldn't limit ourselves like Adam and Eve did in that garden, right? Remember, like Adam and Eve did in that garden. You know, they had some being come tell them, oh, hey, if you experience this, and hey, if you encounter this, then, oh, you know, the God know you're going to be like him, knowing good and evil. Well, unfortunately, what's so crazy about that is that they were already in the image of God, make you forget your divinity. There's so many things that makes us forget our divinity. Y'all know that? Do y'all understand that? You can have a glass of wine that make you forget your divinity. You can have an argument. You know, I'm telling you, I had an argument recently that made me forget my divinity. You know, I had a conversation with somebody that just made me just forget my divinity. And you'll have conversations with people that will sometimes make you forget your divinity. And that's what Adam and Eve did. They had a conversation with somebody outside of the purpose that God created for them and decided to cause them to make them forget their divinity. Anytime you have a conversation with somebody outside of the purpose that you were created for, it'll make you forget how divine you are. It'll make you forget how divine you are. You ever had a conversation with somebody that made you forget that you was divine? Because sons of God, you are divine. You are the byproduct of divinity. Everything about you is divine. It really is. God sees you as divine. How can you not see you as divine? Because we're being sold these stories by people who are not divine. God sees you as divine. You know, no one fights for somebody like God fights for them. And they not be important, and they not be divine. You ever fought for somebody like that? You ever fought for somebody who was just doing just some retarded stuff? You know, in your life, you had somebody in your life, and you knew that they were divine. I'm talking about you knew that they were divine, and that's why you fought for them, because you knew that they were divine. When I talk about divine, I'm talking about, you know, being able to see beyond, you know, the traditions and what we have the ability to see now. You know? Does that make sense? Anybody getting that? God sees us as divine. God does not see us in any other way. Y'all know that? Y'all understand that? Y'all get that? That's why the scriptures, you know, declare in certain places, you know, that you are a royal priesthood. You are holy. Now, Paul, let me tell you something. He dealt with the carnal nature. He didn't have time to deal with the spiritual nature. You know, Christianity or being born again was in its infant state. It's in its infant state. And so He dealt with the carnal nature. He had to deal with the carnal nature all the time, and he didn't have a chance to deal with the divine nature. He didn't, and many of our leaders don't even know about our divine nature because we're so heavily influenced by our carnal nature that we can't even see or know that we have a divine nature. We're being blocked by so many things. This whole world is under the sway of the wicked one, and his whole job is to make it look like you're not divine, make you eat like you're not divine. Many of us, we're not even eating like we're divine. We're not sleeping like we're divine. We're just not even living like we're divine. We can't. We can't even live like we're divine. We can't. And I'm not talking about you driving up in a jet, a Maserati. I'm not talking about divine. That ain't divine. Unless, of course, obviously, you own the car lot, or you own the engineers, that creates these jets. So you own the engineers, that creates these cars. Then now you're walking in your divinity, because you drive a Maserati, because you have the ability to afford it, don't mean you're divine. Because you're feeding the divine, the one who actually owns the Maserati, the one who actually owns the Corvette, the one who actually owns the jets, the one who actually owns these different things. Imagine all of us getting in these name brand cars and we just driving around randomly helping people under the bridge. People would look at us like, man, and they'll have to create something else because they don't want regular people, driving these kind of cars, doing these kind of things. Why do you think they write tickets to us who feeding people under the bridge? They want you to have their permission, to do things because, and it makes us feel some kind of way that when and if we try to even preach the gospel or minister or try to get people out of their poverty, they make us feel like we ain't divine. That you ain't nothing. That, hey, we're in control. Hey, you ain't in control of nothing. Your God ain't in control of nothing, But yet we've heard in our entire church life, our entire church experience, that God is in control of everything. But the reality of it is that, the scriptures also says that the whole world is under the sway, the control of the wicked one. That's what the scriptures say. And I can verify that by looking at the world that we're in. You cannot allow this world to make you forget your divinity so that you can bite into its concepts, so that you could live off its ideas. We have, as far as it relates to purpose, so many things within us, but we can't dig them up because we're constantly working on somebody else's dream. We're constantly working on somebody else's thoughts, somebody else's ideas, i.e. this world. And it could frustrate you. It could frustrate you, especially, it could frustrate you a lot, especially when you know you're chosen. And you're not sitting under leadership who are awakening that divinity, who are really, really, really waking up that divinity and challenging you in ways, in different ways, so that you could see your divine nature. You know, God, when he decides to raise up a person, it ain't got nothing to do with church. It ain't got nothing to do with going to go get a degree. Y'all, when God really raises up a person, it ain't like you think it is. It ain't like what they told us in church. Now, we may preach these stories about David. We may preach these stories about Elijah and many of these different characters in the Bible, but I don't think we really get it. I don't think we really understand it, right? I don't think we really see it as a reality on, how God raises us up and what he's going to put us in and what he's going to put us through. I think we just think that, pow, we're going to end up in a pit, and pow, we're going to end up in a palace. And then, pow, we're going to end up running the world. That hasn't happened yet. It makes us feel good to talk about it because I've learned a lot of things through the things that I've suffered, things that I've went through. A lot of things, and I can't deny them. Even now, I can only express how growing through things, I can see God's divine hand on those things to raise us up to be. So when he puts those big resources in our hand, when he puts those things necessary for change in our hand, that we wouldn't abuse those things, but rather, position them to where that they can create more resources, open up more doors, so that people won't be out here praying for money. We shouldn't be out here praying for money. I shouldn't be out here, you know what I'm saying, like wondering where money gonna come from. There should be somebody on this live that is anointed in a way to where money should never be a problem. Just like with me, revelation is never a problem with me because I'm anointed in that area. Opening things up and breaking things down should never be a problem with me because I'm anointed in that area. And everybody should be anointed in the area that they are anointed in. And I would never step out of my area of anointing to try to fix your anointing. That don't make sense. But we're not coming together on those levels to recognize that. Paul dealt with it. Many leaders, real leaders, deal with it because we not operating as a body. We're operating dysfunctional because everybody want to be the head. Everybody want to be the arms. Everybody want to be the eyes. Nobody don't want to be the other body parts. Nobody is okay with that. Everybody want a full understanding of what's going on and what's happening. Where is faith at? Where is faith? Where is faith? Where is the assurance of knowing that, yeah, God got this. Yeah, God got this. And I'm coming to a place to where I don't even think people know God. You just read this book about prayer. You read this book about fasting. You read this book about God. You read this book about Holy Spirit. In fact, you can watch my videos and take notes, and you can sound like you know God, but you won't even know God. You won't know God. A lot of people don't know God. A lot of people don't know how God operates. Sometimes I get confused on how God operates, because when you're in it, you don't want it to be God. Sometimes when you're in it, you don't want it to be God. Let me say this again. Sometimes when you're in it, you don't want it to be God. You don't want that to be God. And people who have their own logic, their own intellect, never gonna see God. They're not. They can't. They won't. Can't and they won't. Can't, they won't, and they not. Hello? I don't want nothing. I just, the Spirit of God just told me to come on here. That's all the Spirit of God told me to do, just because it's hard to stay walking by the Spirit. It's not easy to walk by the Spirit because something so simple as a word, something so simple as a bug, something so simple as what you hear, what you taste, can cause you to shift into your carnal nature. And the craziest part about your carnal nature that it mimics the spiritual nature so good that you won't even know that you've shifted out of your spiritual nature to your carnal nature. It's like you got to learn you. You got to learn you. And there's no rule book for learning you because nobody out there knows you. Is that okay? Is that safe to say? You have to know without a shadow of a doubt when you shifted from your carnal nature to your spiritual nature, because you could very well, your carnal nature could very well mimic the spiritual nature, very well, because it is the carnal nature that wants to be in control. It is the carnal nature that wants to have the upper hand. It is the carnal nature that wants people to pushes carnal nature want people to make him feel or make her feel like as if she is something, when it's the Spirit that gives us life and the flesh counts for nothing. It counts for nothing. It really counts for nothing according to the scriptures, according to our foundation, according to what the book says. That's what it says. But a couple of things in this hour, I want you to know, or the Spirit of God wants you to know, that false prophets will rise. Not like the ones we have today. These prophets will arise with power. Let me say this because I just got to reveal some things to you. These false prophets and false messiahs, they will rise up and perform great signs. But what's going to be the problem is that it's not going to be God inspired, right? There's certain things, that these false prophets will have the ability to rise up and do, y'all. They will, man. And what's going to be the thing is that their requirements for doing these miracle signs and wonders is going to be detrimental. And you're not going to even know it. You're not going to even know it. You're not going to even know what the payment is. And that's why it's so important that you have to be walking by the Spirit of God so that you can realize that, wait a minute, this is a false prophet. And he or she are getting their powers from what we call a jinn. D-J-I-N-N. If you get some time, you can probably look it up and probably study it. And a lot of people in this hour, in this season, are being visited by these supernatural beings, being visited by these supernatural creatures, and they are accepting, and they are signing over their souls so that they can have the power to make people believe that God is in their lives. I saw it firsthand. I'm not telling you something I read in a book or saw in a movie. I saw it firsthand account of how they're granting them powers. And I know when you watch movies about jinns, it's about you rubbing a lamp and some smoke figure comes out and it's granting you 3 wishes. It's a little bit more complicated than that. There are people out here that these jinns are visiting. I saw it. I saw it. And they granting them powers. And the thing about it is that they not showing up as an angel of light. That's the craziest part about it, y'all, what I saw. They not even showing up as an angel of light. Now, there's some beings that'll show up as an angel of light, but this jinn I saw, it ain't show up as an angel of light. It showed up as it was. It showed up exactly as it was. And some of these people still gave their blood, gave their soul. Gave their soul over so that they could do miracles, signs, and wonder. I mean, unless, of course, I was able to see what they really were, and the people signing the contract wasn't able to see what they really were. And maybe that could have been it. Maybe that could have been it. Maybe they didn't really see it as a jinn. Maybe they probably saw it as an angel, or maybe they probably saw it as a god. But when I looked at it, I saw it as a jinn, and I knew it was jinn because it was in my spirit. It was in my soul automatically. You know, there are things that are in your DNA, in your genetics, in your makeup, in your spirit, in your soul that are automatically there, and you'll know what it is because, you know, you ain't read that in no book. You don't see how that's what it looked like, but they signed it over. And the reason why I say this because, you know, I was approached. I'm a transparent person, y'all. I'm transparent. I'm very transparent, y'all. And sometimes I may be too transparent, you know. Man, that thing told me, man. Man, that thing told me. Let me tell y'all something. I'm going to be transparent. That thing told me God took your family. You know, a lot of stuff I don't tell y'all, man, because, you know, it just, you know, it don't mean nothing. I mean, it means something, but it don't mean nothing. And man, that thing told me God took your family, and I'm going to give you your family back. It told me all the things that God took from me. And the craziest part about it, the thing wasn't lying. The jinn was not lying. You know, they have a element of truth to what they be saying because I get on these lives and I say it all the time. You read your Bible, you'll see many things. God requires you to give up your whole life, everything. And that thing started off by appealing to my carnal nature. It started off by appealing to my carnal nature. Like, look here, God did that. Look there, God did that. Look at this, God did that. And you know, I'm scratching my head like, damn, that ain't a lie, that's truth. But the being manipulated it in a way to where it was God doing it because he hated me. He wanted to destroy me. He wanted to take me out. He didn't want me to have any happiness or any good. You got to be, I mean, I'm not saying you should experience this for yourself or encounter this for yourself, but you don't know how that makes you feel to be able to look at your life and for something to manipulate it as if God took it from you because he hate you. Because he don't want you to have happiness. And many of these beings, that's how they manipulate you. That's how they control you. They control you through this chemical emotion that we call happiness. And let me tell you something. If you're not, you know that, and let me tell you something. Let me tell you this. When I started to go in my carnal nature, the being showed up at first as a jinn. You know, this horrible, malevolent looking creature. But the more I started to buy into the ideas of the jinn, it started looking malevolent. It started looking more beautiful. Did anybody get that? I'm looking at it now, and I'm seeing it change as I begin to get more carnal, as I begin to start buying into the ideas. It started the being no longer looked evil. It's like because I bought into the ideas, my mind transformed it into something beautiful. Does that make sense? Something that I can digest, something that I can experience, something that I can encounter. But before then, it looked horrible. But it made itself, it used whatever, man, let me tell you something. Either it was sucking my energy or whatever it was. But the more that I bought into the ideas that it expressed to me, the more it started looking amazing, the more it started looking great. But then as the Spirit of God, I think this was just an encounter, an experience for me to be able to express it from a position of experience. You know, these beings showed up clear as day. They didn't show up like angels of light. And that's the difference, you know, maybe between me and others. They show up as they are, transparent. They show up transparent and just open up their mouth and start talking. You know? And the more that I buy into it, the more that's when they change. That's when they change. Like they're using something from me in order to make themselves look good. And that's deep. So I just want to, you know, just give you that experience. And another thing that the Spirit of God was expressing to me is that, you know, all things are activated now. All things are a go now. There is nothing that is not limited. You know, everything and all things are a go. And you're gonna have to find your tribe. You're gonna have to find your tribe. You're gonna have to. I don't know. Many who will be watching this, your tribe is gonna be very important. Very, very important. Because most of us are going through trials, tests, you know, and those trials and tests, some of them you'll fail, some of them you'll pass. But even if when you fail, let me tell you something. I failed one. But even when you fall or even when you fail, you know, God, he showed me something in the fall that I wouldn't have never got in the past. I don't know if that makes sense to you. He showed me something in the fall that I wouldn't have learned in the past. Because this is a real God. Because he trying to experience everything that's in his head. Everything. Everything that he got in his head, he trying to experience it. It's one thing to have it in your head. It's another thing to develop a world so you can experience it. And that's deep. That's really deep, 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 deep. But listen, I'm going to be rambling on, but I'm going to get up off of here. I got to make sure that I keep your spirit active as opposed to your carnal nature. Because many of these things you read online, they only tether towards your carnal nature. I don't care that your carnal nature can speak Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic, and know the difference between, you know, Yahshua and that. And that ain't the point. It's the actual spirit. It's not the actual things that you learn. It's the actual spirit in you that's going to stop these demons. That's going to stop these higher beings and these higher creatures. It's not your knowledge of them. And I know that don't sound right. I know that don't sound right to you, but it is God's spirit on the inside of you that they recognize. Nothing else. They don't recognize your knowledge. They don't recognize your understanding. They don't recognize that you say Yeshua or Yahuwah instead of Jesus Christ or Christ. Listen, Jesus loves you, men and women, God, and so do